right, we got one more speaker for this afternoon, Brother Rick Farron from Massachusetts, and he has some connections with Brooklyn, and he knows a little bit of what's going on there that most of us don't know, at least the ones of us that are disconnected from the computer. So Rick, come on up and tell us what you know, and be interesting to find out what's going on at Brooklyn. I'm sure there are. A lot of things that happen. Brother Rick
well, a long time ago, I can still remember how that truth used to make me smile. And I knew that if I had the time, that religion would not be mine, and I'd pretend to be happy for a while. But time went on and made me shiver with every watchtower I delivered. Bad news on each doorstep, I couldn't take one more step. I can't remember if I cried when I read of Russell's widowed bride, but something touched me deep inside the day the Watchtower died. So bye-bye to the Watchtower line. Drove my Chevy out of service, my ministry was dry. Them witnesses on break were eating donuts and pie, singing this'll be the day I say bye. I'm awake now, the Watchtower's alive. Russell didn't write the book of love, and you didn't have faith in God above. The New World Translation tells us so. He believed that hell's just a hole. Can Watchtower save your mortal soul? And they thought, tell me how to lie and go. Well, I know they are in love with him, 'cause I saw them dancing with Satan chin to chin. They both kicked off their shoes. Wait till the servants hear this news. I was a doubting witness without a buck, and a brown book bag filled with muck. But I knew I had changed my luck the day the Watchtower died. And I was singing bye-bye to the Watchtower line. Drove my Chevy out in service, but my ministry was dry. And witnesses on break were eating donuts and pie, singing this'll be the day they say bye. I'm awake now, the Watchtower's alive.
Well, I thought you might like to hear that. I came across this man on Facebook, and his name is Ben Brady. He lives down in Texas, as a matter of fact. And come to find out, he's my cousin. And he changed his name. He didn't want to be associated with me. No. No, what happened is I did come across him, and he is a singer. He's a Christian singer, and he'd like to do some parodies for the Watchtower songs. And I play that song on my conference call that I have every Saturday night, as well as some others that we're writing up now. But I want to say hello, witnesses for Jesus, and how good it is to look out there and see all these smiling faces. I used to speak in kingdom halls, and I've even given a couple of talks here before, but I have to tell you, I like this audience better. This audience is a lot more energetic looking and alive looking, I have to tell you that. Well, I feel like it's a real privilege here, giving what you could say is the last scheduled talk at the Setner Era First Chapter Conventions. And that is a good feeling. I feel like the last creature that was taken into Noah's Ark, or I feel like the last batter to come up at Yankee Stadium when you stop and think about it. So it's a real privilege, and I thank Joan for letting me come up here today and give a talk. So that's a good thing. Now, as we have seen and understand, this was the 33rd year that Joan has been doing this convention. And when we leave here today, brothers and sisters, we're going to be standing 10 feet high. And we've got to be careful that we don't hit our heads on the doorpost on the way out. Because we're all excited, and we're all excited now that the convention is going to continue on as well. Now, as the T-shirt says, it's more than a convention. It's a family reunion. And that's exactly how I feel about it. And Joan, these conventions have been rockin' awesome. That's all I can say about it. I mean, I look forward to it, as all of you folks do. You hate to even leave, but another chapter is ending, but next year they'll be right back here again. Now, 33 years ago, Bill and his supportive, Holy Spirit-filled wife came up to this beautiful mountain. They had a dream. They prayed to God about it. They excitedly talked to each other about it. They told their friends what they were going to do. They came to the mountain to spread the word that there is help for enslaved Jehovah's Witnesses. They knew that there was a hole in the heart of many Jehovah's Witnesses, a hole that was hungering for truth. Bill and Joan wanted the broken-hearted, exiting witnesses to acknowledge that when they no longer want to be burdened, heavy-laden slaves of a counterfeit Christian organization, they can come to know and have a real loving spiritual relationship, a relationship they do not have to earn, a relationship they do not have to, it won't change or won't be unfairly taken away from them, a Holy Spirit-filled relationship, a relationship that has power. These are the relationships that Joan and Bill were speaking about. Jehovah's Witnesses can now come to know Jesus and become witnesses for Jesus. How many suffering Jehovah's Witnesses have been helped by Joan and Bill in this Witnesses Now for Jesus convention would be impossible to calculate. All we know is their humble, loving efforts to genuinely help people leave the false Christian teachings has been huge. My wife and I are included. Many here are included. And we want to thank you, Joan, sincerely. My wife and I, along with two other folks, showed up here in the year 2002. And we were, at the time, card-carrying, anointed Jehovah's Witnesses, of all things. And we came in here, when Joan passed the microphone around on Friday morning, we didn't know what we wanted to do. We didn't know whether we wanted to speak or not, so we didn't know what to say. So we basically said that we are here. We are concerned on what's going on in the world of the Watchtower. We were starting to see things that were not right. We were starting to see things that you couldn't make sense out of. So now we have a lot of things to talk about in the Watchtower. But, I have to say this. What was the new light back in the 70s when Joan and Bill started the convention? So I went back and started looking into some of the old bound publications and what have you. And some of the new light back in the 70s, of course, we know the infamous elder arrangement took place. That was back in the early 70s. And of course, no smoking. The no smoking ban came into play, where you could be disfellowshipped. They gave us some time to stop smoking. I believe it was 6 months. But if you couldn't stop after that period of time, you got the boot. And many, many witnesses did get the boot. I know a lot of them, even to this day, they're no longer in, but they got booted out of the organization for smoking cigarettes. And so smoking cigarettes isn't a good thing. But to connect it spiritually is a difficult thing, I'm sure. And the Watchtower doesn't have they don't have the right light on anything. In fact, if they fall out of a spiritual tree, they hit every branch on the way down, don't they? Because they miss all of the tenets of the Bible. Now, also at that time, we can remember the Watchtower. Back in the 70s, the Watchtower study changed. what they did is they noticed that a lot of the witnesses weren't commenting at the Watchtower studies. So what they did is they said, well, we got a problem here. Nobody's raising their hand. And the reason is because they would ask the question before they read the paragraph. So now somebody came up at headquarters that we better read the paragraph first, and then the witnesses can get a heads up and answer. So that's still in play today. That took place back in the 1970s. But and also, right around 1979, the year that the convention first started here, the witnesses could now eat Hershey bars. They could eat ice cream, they could eat hot dogs, and they could drink wine again. So that was a good thing. And what was that all about? Well, there was a scare going around in the witness world that all of these products had blood in them. Now, it wasn't officially recorded in the Watchtower, but many people, it was like floating around all the congregations. Oh, don't drink that wine. That wine has a product of blood in it. And the same thing with Hershey bars and Dairy Queen ice cream. Some of you probably remember some of this. But the problem was they came out in 79, and the questions to the readers, and it was a product that was found in these foods that many were confusing as a product of blood. The product was lecithin, and that was a product as an emulsifier, or an emulsion. It actually makes food stick together. And a lot of the witnesses were saying that if it had lecithin in the product, that it would be blood and don't eat it. So, I mean, you had people going to the supermarket and picking up packages of hot dogs to make sure there's no lecithin in it. But this is how crazy it is, friends, when you're inside the Watchtower organization. Well, a lot of things are happening as we speak. In fact, there's a whole lot of new light. There we go. And that's our official sound clip for new light. You might hear it a few times here today. But well, let's start. You say, well, where do you get the news here, Rick? I mean, the news about the Watchtower is pretty easy to come by. It's not a problem. Anyone can find it on the internet. But also some information, and maybe when I do give the information about this man that calls in, we have a mole that calls into our program from the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses. And some of you probably heard about him. His name is Johnny the Bethelite. Now, for those people out there that are watching on the internet, many believe him, many don't. I believe a lot of the things he says are true, because what happens is a few weeks after he says it, it comes to fruition. So he called in for the first time on our conference call program. It was January 1st, Saturday night, rolling the clocks back to 2011, the 1st of January. And all of a sudden, I got a call. It was saying, Rick, are you there? I says, who's this? He says, Johnny. I says, Johnny who? He says, let's just call me Johnny the Bethelite. He says, I'm calling in from a closet in Bethel. Now, right off the bat, right off the bat, that sounds like, this is phony baloney stuff. And he was on the phone call for a couple of hours, and he was telling us a lot of things that were going on. And I kind of discounted him at first. But this has been going on now for 10 months. He still comes on. He's telling us all the things that are going on there. He works in the computer IT department. I mean, he is a sharp guy, and he's getting all the information he possibly can. He's trying to get out of the Watchtower. He wants to get out with a lot of files from computers. And some of the stuff he's been sharing with me is quite unbelievable. And I'll share some things with you, and some things that I don't think should be shared, because sometimes there's some things that just don't make sense to me. But let's go first of all. Let's start with the overlapping generation. Now we know that came out a couple of years back, and it's not settling well. A lot of the witnesses are having a difficult time with it, and they had a talk at the district convention this summer, and they also just had a talk at circuit assemblies. They wanted to talk about it again because the witnesses are not grasping this overlapping generation. And basically, I'll even read you what the overlapping generation is as they read it from the, I'll go right to the convention notes here. This is in part what they're now explaining as the overlapping generation. The generation referred to at Matthew 24:34 comprises two groups of anointed Christians. The first group was on hand in 1914, when the sign of Christ's presence began to be observed. The second group, made up of those who were anointed later, are for a time contemporaries of the older group. Jesus' words at Matthew 24:34 indicate that some in the second group will witness the beginning of the Great Tribulation. Hence, the length of the generation is limited. To illustrate, F.W. Franz was born in 1893, baptized in 1913, and thus alive to discern the sign in 1914. Since Brother Franz lived until 1992, many present-day anointed ones were contemporaries of his and are part of the generation that Jesus said would not pass away until all these things occur. So this is the new understanding of the lap-over generation. This is what they're now saying. I went back and counted 16 changes on the generation since the inception of the Watchtower doctrine on this. 16 different changes. This is the newest change, and it's not going over good. In fact, that was a talk that they had to talk about this summer in the district convention. That came right from the notes, so that they could get the brothers and sisters to understand this, and they're still having a hard time with it. Basically, what they're saying. I'm sorry, Tom, Todd.
I don't understand it yet.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'll cut it out of Watchtower pure language. We'll bring it down into the common language. All right. So basically, what you've got here. There were certain ones born, or at least able to understand 1914, like Freddie Franz, all right? He was born prior to 1914, but in 1914, he could understand that was a mark here, and he came into existence to understand. He now understood it. Now, as years went along, new anointed ones coming along had an opportunity to hear Freddie Franz. How many here heard Freddie Franz talk at the convention in New York? Yeah, many, see? So, in other words, you would be, if you heard that talk, you're a contemporary. In other words, you heard Freddie Franz talk about it. So that would make you a contemporary of Freddie Franz. So that would make you the lap-over generation. In other words, you're lapping over a generation of previous anointed ones. It's foolish, right? But again, how do you make sense out of nonsense? They're anointed. Right. They're the only ones in the lap-over generation, anointed ones. So before this generation of the ones who were lapping over, the 1914 anointed, and we have some younger members of the governing body right now there, and they are part of that. In around 60, 55, you'd qualify to be in the lap-over generation. But absolutely right. It's that simple. Okay, thank you, Keith. It's that simple. But again, the witnesses aren't understanding it. Even as you hear it, it's very silly sounding. So they had to have a demonstration of two brothers talking about it at the circuit assembly. And they had a couple of brothers on stage talking about, boy, in fact, one brother says to the other, I don't really get this. You know, he says, I'm not understanding the new teaching about the generation. So the other brother says, well, we've got to be a little careful about this. And, we notice the Watchtower's changing this thing almost every year. That's just what they said at the circuit assembly. So surprisingly, they even did this, but they're trying to drive a point home. So they said, well, we'll try to do some research on it so that we can get it crystal clear. I mean, even those of us that are studying it finding it hard to get it crystal clear. So what they did is they went back and they reviewed the notes from the district convention, and they went over the notes. They said, well, we'll review the notes from the district convention and see if we can make it more clear for us. So on stage, they reviewed the notes, and after doing that, they said, we totally understand this now. So, this is what the Watchtower is doing. Now, the governing body is getting a lot of flack over this. There's a lot of letters coming into the Watchtower, according to my mole. In fact, he knows the woman who is in the mailroom, and he says there's a lot of letters that are coming in there, and So many witnesses are disgruntled. This is the first time in the history of the Watchtower that they're in this defensive mode, as we say. For so many years, they were in the offensive mode. They were out always attacking and bullying everybody else. Now, all of a sudden, things have turned. Now, all of a sudden, they're in the defensive mode. They're put against the wall, and this is good. And some of the things you're going to hear are unbelievable. I'm sure a lot of you folks already understand and have seen some of this stuff on the internet. But in the last couple of months, and we'll get to it as we move on, big-time developments, big-time. In fact, I was 10 feet high last week when some of the news was coming out about the Watchtower. I was excited about it because in the years that I've been out, I haven't heard anything yet that is so destructive to the Watchtower organization. So we'll get to that. So the governing body is concerned about all of this. Lap-over generation, people are not buying it, and there's a lot of people that are leaving the organization because of it. Now, Internet Eve, well, that's a new phrase the Watchtower is using as of late. In fact, in the August 15, 2011 copy, that's just a few months back, it talks about Internet Eve. And let's go back and read what it says here. It says here right out of the Watchtower, I just made bigger print here so I can get to it faster. Today, anyone with an internet connection can become a desktop professor, pretending to be in the know, without even revealing his name. And there are no rules on who can publish ideas, information, images, and suggestions. Now it says here, do not become an Internet Eve. Boy, what is that? When I first was reading this, be critical and suspicious of information. Before trusting it, ask, 1, who published this material? 2, why was this published? What motivated the writer? Is there any bias? 3, where did the author get the information? Does he supply sources that can be checked? 4, is the information current? In the first century, the Apostle Paul gave Timothy advice that applies with equal force today. And it goes on, but we'll get to the Internet Eve part. The Watchtower is telling everyone Jehovah's Witnesses have got to be very critical of what they are seeing on the internet. This is a picture. Internet Eve is a phrase, it's a new phrase. They're saying, they're going right back to the Garden of Eden. They're saying that the Satan ensnared her then and took her away from God. And now they're saying the internet is doing the same thing with a lot of the witnesses. So here was a picture, you'll find it interesting. That's a picture that appeared in the Watchtower. Now that's the cable from the, that is the cable of a computer. And then in the back you can see the shadow looks like a snake. So it's a pretty good graphic. So it's showing that, the internet is a snake. It's a Satan. That's the August 15th. Yeah, August 15th, 2011. 2011, yeah. So that's the latest. So in other words, they don't want you to become this Internet Eve. So I'm really glad now that they have a new phrase, because I was getting sick and tired of my relatives using brazen conduct. Now they can now they can start calling people on the internet and getting all this apostate literature Internet Eves. There we go. So, Gilead, what about Gilead? Well, there's a lot of big changes going on. The Gilead school is, it's going to become somewhat different, a lot different. And in fact, just the annual meeting, just a few days back, October 3rd, they had their annual meeting at the Watchtower, and the Gilead school was brought up. They're not going to call it Gilead anymore, from what I understand. And what they're doing is they're not going to train missionaries for foreign lands, especially these third world lands. What they're doing is they want to concentrate more of their efforts on the more industrialized areas. So they're going to take all the people that would be going to Gilead. They're still going to train them, but they're going to train them for use in local areas. In other words, go back to the kingdom halls. And this is the way that the Watchtower is downsizing and letting a lot of the people go. But there are also some of the thoughts on this, with the not wanting to send missionaries into the foreign lands anymore and keep them right in areas that are industrialized. They don't want to get them into the rurals. They want them right where the people are, where the wealth is. Let's go with that. And then what's going to happen is some are thinking that this is a way that the governing body can let some of the people go. And also they've been talking about letting the circuit overseers go. It's expense to the organization. So some are thinking that these new people graduating from this new school to train people for domestic use here in the United States are going to be the new replacements for the circuit overseers. So these are some of the things that are floating around. Now, I can't say that last thing with certainty, but I know for certainty about the Gilead School. That it's just my own thought and what people have said that some of the reasons would be. So it's interesting to see all these things happening, and I'm so glad that Satan kicked me out of his organization, I'll tell you that, because it's an organization that's doing nothing but continuing to stay alive, spewing out foolishness. And how much longer can the witnesses continue to go along with it? Now, here's another thing I came across, in fact, very recent here, in the December 15th, 2011 Watchtower. And it says, basically, if you're sick, go out and service more. Now, we've all heard this, haven't we? The Watchtower cuts nobody any slack. They want you out there knocking on doors. They want you out there witnessing and recruiting people, as many as you can possibly bring in. That was the December 15th, 2011. Now, we've always heard these examples when we were witnesses. 2010. Did I say 11? I'm sorry. 2000. Yeah. Yeah. No, in fact, hold on. It's December 11th. It's the 2011, I'm sorry, December 15, 2011. They print them ahead of time. It is the 2011. It's out already. A lot of the witnesses don't have it, but I got it. All right. So, in fact, some of the Jehovah's Witnesses might be hearing this for the first time. So if you're online listening, I'll give you my email. You can write to me at 6screen06@yahoo.com, and I'll send you the info. Now, what this magazine is doing is giving examples of loyal Jehovah's Witnesses continuing to preach even when they're pretty sick. And we've all experienced stories like that in the Watchtower. Now, here's a few comments from some of the articles, some of the points in the Watchtower. I enjoy making return visits and helping out on Bible studies. On my better days, I like to witness from house to house. Barbara, who has a brain tumor. I carry only a very light magazine bag. I stay out as long as my aching joints allow. Zabignu, she has rheumatoid arthritis. In fact, she's a hospital patient. I like the door-to-door ministry, but I am not feeling up to it. I engage in telephone witnessing. Isabel suffers from clinical depression. So yeah, they're writing this in a Watchtower. What's this going to do to a healthy-minded person or a healthy person? All right? You got that one right. Yeah. In addition to doing telephone witnessing, I write other brothers and sisters letters and regularly correspond with a few interested ones. While in the hospital, I always put the Bible and publications next to my bed. That has helped me to strike up many good conversations. Magdalena, diagnosed with symptomatic lupus. So, we have people with these diseases that are suffering, and yet the Watchtower continues to make them go out and do more. So the only reason why a cult, and that's why they are a cult, that's the type of writing that comes forth from a cult. Imagine the impact that has on a healthy person, as we said before. All right. How about Facebook? How many here have a Facebook account? Oh, yeah, a lot of people on Facebook. Now, here's what's going on with Facebook. First of all, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, you cannot have a Facebook account. And I knew some witnesses that did, and they had to get rid of them. They had to delete them. Oh, yeah, that's a fact. Well, that's a fact. If there's witnesses on there, they're going to be caught up with. And I'm sorry?
Who's doing the monitoring? Who's monitoring?
Oh, there's people at the Watchtowers monitoring them. Oh, yeah, no, I'm going to get to that. I'll tell you how they're finding out if you're on there. If you are a ministerial servant, an elder, and you have children that have a Facebook account, you can be deleted. That's how serious it is, friends. These guys mean business, and they have got such a control on the witnesses, it's not even funny. Who's monitoring them? It's a known fact that elders, in a low-tech way, local elders can get in there and look names up and cross-reference different friends and what have you and see if they can pick up on friends that are witnesses, and then they will call them into the back room, and they'll print out what they're writing, and then they'll ask them if they're on Facebook, and of course if the witness lies, using a little theocratic warfare in the opposite direction, if the witness lies, they'll pull out the printed sheet. Didn't you write this? I mean, they're indicted, so they're getting off in droves. But I'll tell you who's monitoring these is Johnny the Bethelite. Absolutely. And he told me that he works in the IT team. There's 20 people on the team. And he says these are computer experts. He's gone to school for it. In fact, he was going to medical school. And his father and mother, his father's an elder, his mother's a loyal witness, his brother and sister are both at Bethel. And he told me that he came in and they put him on that team. He's only 22 years old. He's sharp as a whip. And he works on all the computers. But he told me that his job when he first came to the Watchtower, they put him right in that department because of his knowledge of computers. And he said what they do is they monitor websites. And what they do is they give certain ones the responsibility of monitoring a website. He got to monitor our website, the 6 screens of the Watchtower. And he said I was doing that along with some Facebook trolling. And it really was bothering him. In fact, it was our site, he claims, took him out of the Watchtower. I have on there a tape, my judicial hearing tape, when they disfellowshipped me. And he listened to that, and he listened to how they treated my wife, and he said that was it for him. So actually, by monitoring these sites, a lot of these Bethelites are going to see some of the dangers that's out there. And I even asked him, well, Johnny, I mean, don't they realize you're going to be seeing things like this, these people on the IT team? And he said, well, what they do is an older brother from Bethel comes around every day and says to them to try to, build them up. We need this information of what people are saying about us. And we know you're seeing things. In fact, you're probably even beginning to doubt some of the things we're saying. But, they're Satan. Don't listen to them. And they give them like a little pep talk every day. So this is how and he says it's so horrendous there right now. It's like enslavement, and they keep tightening up the knots all the time. People are walking around so stressed out, he said, it's pathetic because of a lot of this new teaching. But anyways, he was monitoring Facebook and was really bothering his conscience because he felt like he was ratting on people. He'd get in there and connect all the dots and find witnesses, and then he'd go and report it to the powers to be at the Watchtower. And it was really bothering his conscience. He said, I can't. It was making him sick, really, literally sick to his stomach that he's reporting all these people. And it was going back to the local congregation, then they were disfellowshipping people. So he went to Brother Barr. Brother Barr just died within the last year or so. And he said Brother Barr was one of the more likable governing body members and official. Is that true, Joan, huh? Yeah, you never knew him, but he a lot of people have said that. And he said Brother Barr agreed with him that they really shouldn't be doing that, Johnny, but that's what they're doing. But you can see how evil, you can see how heinous they are at the Watchtower. Joan, they're cranking up the heat. There's no question about it. Now, how about Max Larson? Now, he was the president of the Watchtower up until last week. In fact, he died. And in fact, it was it last week, actually, he died... September 27th, a week and a half ago. Max Larson. He was the Watchtower president of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York. And he would have been around when you were there, Joan.
He was the head of the factory, the printing organization, that whole, he was the head overseer of that whole unit. And I knew him from the time I was about his size.
Absolutely, a lot of witnesses knew him. Isn't that something? Well, he was 96 years old, and he died.
He actually gave the memorial talk for my mother and father when they died.
Is that right, huh? Wow. But Max Larson really was a a totally loyal Jehovah's Witness. He was there for over 70 years, and a bushy-eyed brother with a friendly smile, as the comments say here, and he gave his complete devotion to the Watchtower Society, and he was a captive to a concept down to the end. And there's a sad thing here. There's a couple of ways you can look at this. On one, you can get like mixed emotions. On one hand, you could feel like Max wasted most of his life right there at the Watchtower organization. And then on the other hand, look at all the lives that were lost because of his involvement with the Watchtower Society. So it's a sad state of affairs when you stop and think about it, isn't it? But all of the older ones are dying off. A lot of the older ones are leaving, and new blood is coming in, and now people are saying, well, what's going to happen? What's the future of the Watchtower? A lot of younger ones are going to come in with new ideas and try to do different things, and there's a shuffling that's going on right now, so only time will tell. Now, another thing I found very, very interesting, and I'm trying to keep it as current as I can for you, keep it right up to date, October 15th, 2011. Now, remember, these dates, they print the Watchtower about 4 months ahead of time. So you've got 4 months from now, their magazines are out and ready, but a lot of the witnesses don't have them yet. But the Watchtower of October 15th, 2011, says to make up your own mind. Now, this is an interesting thing. Neither the branch office or the world headquarters is in a position to analyze and answer all such questions that have not been considered in our literature. In other words, they're getting all of these letters, and this is what Johnny has been telling me too, and now I see it right here in the Watchtower. They're getting all of these letters in from people asking questions, and they're trying to get an answer from the Watchtower. Now the Watchtower is saying, don't bother writing us. What is this organization becoming? Now, we can be satisfied, they say, that the Bible provides sufficient information to guide us through our life, but omits enough detail so as to require us to have strong faith in its divine author. So a lot of things are happening internally. Now, the Watchtower's doctrinal development generation is all but dead and gone. That's all the old people, the ones that originally came up with all this doctrinal information. Now, a few remnants are there, and they're getting older, as we say. They're in the mid-80s, 90s, and none of these ever really made it to the top decision-making position in the Watchtower, many of them. Now, there's newbies that are coming in and even pushing a lot of these older ones out. And the Watchtower is going to see a change. There's going to be a lot of new changes coming up in the future. And perhaps, worst of all, Watchtower's current leadership has inherited a set of doctrines that place it in a very vulnerable position. Now, I'll tell you why. At the top of this heap is all doctrine impinging the organization's end-time teaching. All of these teachings are heavily dependent on the year 1914 as a marker from which many very important things are said to happen. Friends, it's been 97 years. 2 years and 2 months, the magic year, 2014. That'll be 100 years of malarkey. Now, how are people, and not just Jehovah's Witnesses, but they're going to have a hard time with this when they cross the threshold to 2014, bells and whistles are going to be going off in their head. It's going to happen. There we go. So bells and whistles will be going off, and they're going to be saying, I don't know if I believe this anymore. But never mind even the committed, loyal witness. Well, what about people that have been accepting this magazine now for years and years and years? They're going to find this is foolish. They've been saying this for years. It's 100 years downstream. So we're going to see a lot of things take place. And for decades, the Watchtower has received inquiries from the witness community questioning important details of these teachings. Details that if couldn't be answered properly, And I wrote to the Watchtower on a number of occasions, and they'd always write back and give you their understanding. And say, oh, that's great, the brothers wrote to me, and I understand it now. But they don't want you writing the letters, as I said earlier, because they don't want to have to get in explaining all of this. Brothers, it's been 100 years you were saying, Armageddon was coming, but, it's a long time. Can you please tell me why it took so long? I mean, seriously, these are the type of questions they're going to start getting. Now, the advent of the internet age has exacerbated this problem for the Watchtower, and it's only getting worse. This has made things very worse because birthers and shakers of these doctrines are effectively out of the picture, and these newbies are left with the problematic details of trying to explain all of this, and it's really impossible. So you can imagine the position some of the new people are in at the top levels of the Watchtower, trying to explain all of this stuff that is all new light, So these are things to think about. Well, enough on that one. We've got a lot of stuff to cover here, so we'll move to the next one. Oh, I got to 4 o'clock, Joan, right? I was thinking I had to 4:15, but I think it's 4. All right. How about this one? I came across this. Pray now and pay later. Now, we got what we got going on. This is quite the thing. We've got credit card donation terminals are currently being installed in all of the Jehovah's Witness assembly halls for the 2012 service year. And I actually have a letter here that was written to the congregation elders. It says, "Dear brothers," you know how they used to get up there and read that, right? "Dear brothers," and they had that somber look about them. This letter is direct from the Watchtower, But "Dear brothers," at Deuteronomy 16:15, Jehovah commanded those celebrating the festival of booths, "You must become nothing but joyful." Similarly, circuit assemblies and special assembly days are always joyous occasions because of Jehovah's abundant blessing. In view of this, many show appreciation by making voluntary contributions at the assembly. As in previous years, voluntary contributions can be placed in a contribution box, either in cash or by check made payable to the circuit. However, a new arrangement for making donations by debit or credit card has been approved for congregations that hold their circuit event in assembly halls. Locations for making debit or credit card donations will be announced at the assembly. We pray Jehovah's rich blessing on your preparations to attend the circuit assembly and special assembly day programs for the year 2012 service year. And I think the brothers are also praying that the witnesses' credit cards aren't maxed out before they get there. Well, that's the other thing I thought of. There's other churches that do that. Even the Watchtower actually exposed them for doing it years ago. Now they're doing the same thing. But here's the thought that I have. If you're going to go in and, here we give our offering, fine, you can put some money in cash. But when you start, putting money in on a credit card, you're in debt. So, this is debted money you're giving to the Watchtower. Now, what happens when the bill comes in and you can't pay it? Can you get Watchtower to help you? Some of these credit cards have protection programs, when you got something was fraudulent. So, in other words, what if you put your credit card in there and gave them $100 at the assembly, and then all of a sudden 2 weeks later you disfellowship? Can you get your money back? I mean, that could be fraud. So these are things, these are questions that have to be answered, don't they? Joan, you have not heard the most of this. When I tell you, when I get some figures I'm going to share with you at the end of this talk, how much money they're bringing in from the sale of real estate, you haven't heard it yet. I got the information. Big, big dollars. You're not going to believe it. I'm going to tell you before we leave. Now, how about the new, many probably heard about this one. Now, this is really new. July 15th, the Watchtower came up with a new edition. Of course, we have the We, I'm saying we. I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. It's vernacular. You get mixed up with this stuff. You know, you even find yourself calling it the truth from time to time. It's not the truth, you know? So that's how you get mixed up with it. But anyways, on July 15th, they came out with a new edition. The Watchtower now has the study edition. They have the public edition. But now they have the simplified edition. Now, isn't that something? It's a very simplified publication. And this is apparently for the many people whose first language is not English, and yet they live in a predominantly English-speaking country. And we have a lot of that going on here, friends, with people having a hard time with English, so the Watchtower is going to reach out to them. Now, the real issue is, does any Jehovah's Witness really read any of the publications anyways? So they're going to come out with a simplified one. Now, I remember back in the 1970s, we just talked about how they changed the arrangement on the way they did the Watchtower. They now read the question before they answer it. And in a Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall today, you would be hard-pressed to find any Jehovah's Witness reading a simplified edition of the Watchtower. That would make them look spiritually weak. Maybe some of the children would read it. But you would automatically, look at brother over there. He's got that simplified edition. He's not getting it. He's So these are the. I don't know if to watch. I think they're asleep at the helm. So this is desperation, really, when you stop and think about it. They're trying everything they can to kind of get more people attracted to this organization. All right, a lot here, friends. Let's go again to July 15, 2011. Came across this gem in the Watchtower. Don't watch news items featuring witnesses. Now we're fine. These guys are getting paranoid. Don't watch news items featuring witnesses. And we've been watching news items as of late featuring witnesses. I can even remember one on the Diane Sawyer show, ABC Primetime, just a couple months back. You probably saw that. The Garridos out in California with the J.C. Duggard girl that they kidnapped and kept out in their backyard. They were connected with the witnesses. And a lot of people never realized that, but Diane Sawyer, right on that program, said that Nancy Garrido was a Jehovah's Witness. So, this is the type of bad press they're getting. So, with all of this stuff coming out, and of course even the Dateline show going back to 2002 with Barbara Anderson on it and exposing the Watchtower with all the pedophilia. So this stuff is starting to show up on primetime news. So now they're saying they're getting nervous because of some of the things that's going to be coming out in the future. So they want to write ahead in the Watchtower, do not watch news items with featuring Jehovah's Witnesses. The society is evidently now dissuading witnesses from watching new items that touch on Jehovah's Witnesses or when former witnesses are viewed. So, Joan, a lot of those witnesses might not get in and watch the Ankerberg show. But I saw it, and I was still a Jehovah's Witness at the time, and I talked to a couple of other witnesses that saw that Ankerberg show, and they were Jehovah's Witnesses too. So they're getting in there, and they're sneaking in, listening. So the lessons for Jehovah's Witnesses is, if a credible news report featuring a former witness flashes up on your TV screen while you and your wife are going over the daily text, this is right out of the Watchtower, verbatim. If you and your wife are doing a day's text, drinking coffee and eating muffins, you should switch the channel. Isn't that something, huh? And not listen to what's being said. That's on paragraph 7. Then it follows, it says, what is involved in avoiding false teachers? We do not, so they're calling these people that are putting these news programs up false teachers. We do not receive them into our homes or greet them. We also refuse to read their literature, watch TV programs that feature them, examine their websites, or add or comments to their blogs. Why do we take such a firm stand? Because of love. We love the God of truth, so we are not interested in twisting teachings that contradict the word of truth. Isn't that something, huh? Well, needless to say, the article doesn't go on to say, ironically, you'll never know just how twisted our teachings are because you're now banned from finding out. It doesn't say that, does it, huh? So, What do we got here? Well, I think many of us have heard the news by now. It's been going on for the last few years. Let me read this to you. It's right out of the Brooklyn Eagle. This goes back a year or so ago. And there's newspaper articles all over the place concerning what I'm going to read you now. And a lot of things happening in Brooklyn. Downtown Brooklyn, this is right out of the Brooklyn Daily Eagle. It's definite, rumors can be laid to rest. The Watchtower Bible and Tract Society is moving its headquarters out of Brooklyn Heights and up to Warwick, New York. We have submitted a proposal to the town of Warwick to build a complex there that we're calling the World Headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses. This is Richard Devine. He's a spokesman for the Watchtower. He told the Eagle. We have started the land use process there. Devine, who was in charge of the real property for the religious organization, was confirming this. And it goes on to say there's going to be parking garages. They're adding on numerous buildings, numerous rooms. It's planned to house about 850 people at its peak. Some of the things that they're doing, these are really nice buildings that they're building. In fact, there's 4 big projects, in fact, 3 projects they're working on, and one already up in Patterson, as we know. But upstate New York is a prime real estate for the Watchtower. So they're moving everything out of Brooklyn, and they're moving everything up to upstate New York. And they've got Patterson up there, as we say, and now they're also building a 248-acre site at Ramapo Town. It's a town called Ramapo up in New York. Some might have heard of that. And they're also refurbishing Wallkill. They're building a lot of new additions, rooms, and what have you up there. We're going to get that in a second or two. And things are happening. They no longer want to be in Brooklyn, and they're looking for the way out right now. They're trying to sell all the real estate off. Let's see if I have some other stuff. Warwick is 45 minutes away from the LaGuardia Airport. Because someone asked, they said, boy, you have millions of people. I forget what they said, a few million people a year that want to come down and visit Bethel. But, is it going to be harder for them to go up there? He says, no, we're only 45 minutes away, so they'll still do tours and what have you. But there's something fishy going on here, friends. My friend, the mole, Johnny, and again, can I believe everything he says? And then all of a sudden it comes out in the Watchtower. I see it in the news. But he did tell me a few months back, this is before a lot of this information came out, even about some of the new construction projects. He did tell me, Rick, he says, they got all of these construction people, and they come down here to Bethel, and you can see they've got the hard hats on, and they're walking around, and we're asking them, what are you building? Because there's nothing going on there. And they will not talk about it. They say, well, we're not gonna get into it. So he's been asking. It's like a secret construction program that they have going on up there. And I'm gonna give you some more information on that. We'll spend a little more time into this. Let's talk a little more about, just to give you the scope of the project here. As previously reported in the Eagle, the Society had acquired this property in Orange County and another in Ramapo, New York. It also submitted a proposal for a 248-acre site up there in Ramapo as well. Now, we're just getting ready to begin the land use process. That is the spokesman from the Watchtower is saying here. That is, you submit to the town what you're planning on doing. And then you get plans back. And this is, let me show you one of the plans. Well, I did have it here somewhere. But I actually got a copy of the plans. I'll show it to you afterwards if you want to see it. And what they're doing is they're developing land up there like you've never seen it, and they're building these large complexes. Specifically, they look like college campuses. They have more and more rooms than you could ever imagine. Here they are downsizing. Most of their printing has already left Bethel in Brooklyn. They're printing some up at Wallkill and some up in Canada. But they're not going to be printing anything at these new facilities. These are just like, they look like country clubs. And this is what's really disturbing a lot of the people finding out about this. Well, what are they building complexes like this for? And the way that I look at it is, after 100 years, their printed page is going to be having a hard time selling in the future. And that's really how they relied. It's a business. It's a publishing company. It's the largest religious publishing company in the world. And so that's how they've been able to survive, really, is by selling magazines and going out and recruiting people. But they've got to find better ways. The business model of the future has got to be different. So what we have up in New York, specifically at Wallkill, is a complex remodeling of the Wallkill Watchtower, the old Watchtower Farms. They don't call that anymore. But there's a remodeling that's going on up there that's really big time. And I'm going to tell you, there's every imaginable sports playing field that you can think of. There's a soccer field, there's a football field, there's baseball, there is all of these fields, and they have a basketball court, a number of them. They're putting in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And, so no one's talking about all of this, but I got that right from the newspaper, not the newspaper, but the building. I'll show it to you later if you want to come and see it. I'll show it to you. Right from the town up in Wallkill. I have a hard time pronouncing the name of the town. It's an Indian name, Shamamek or something like that. And I got the plans from that city. It's online. From that town online. You can read about it. But a lot of the people are saying, well, why do they need a swimming pool? Now, I don't have anything to say against recreational centers, but this is more luxury. I mean, while the witnesses are learning not to go out and spend and how to be wise and frugal and don't get caught up in this system of things, here they are building a complex like that, and let me tell you what they're thinking. Okay, I'm going to share with you what they're thinking, and it certainly makes sense. Every one of these projects, excluding Patterson, I don't know too much about that, but these other projects that they're doing, the other three, are resembling college campuses. The facilities, I mean, why do you need a regulation basketball court? So, that's college sports. So here's what some are thinking. Now, don't take it to the bank and cash it, because I don't know. They're a private company, it only makes you think what they're doing. But it certainly doesn't resemble a publishing company. So there's different thoughts that I have come up with and people have shared with me. One thought is that they're jealous of the Mormons with Brigham Young. You're laughing, Becky. One thought is they're jealous of the Mormons, and yet Brigham Young University brings a lot of money in. So they're thinking, hey, why can't we have a Jehovah's Witness college? What's the matter with doing that? And now, Freddie Franz University, Bob. So why can't we have, why can't we have a Jehovah's Witness college? And you think of all the witness families with their little witness kids. They'll find them, Joan. I don't know how they're going to do this, but that's just one thought. So they could make a lot of money sending all the little witness kids off to school and pay big bucks for this. That's one thought. Now, I'm not telling you that's what they're doing. Please, if you're on the internet, don't attack me. I get attacked all the time for this stuff. I'm not trying to sensationalize it. I'm just giving you some things. I'm just throwing it out. You guys can take and do what you want with it. Now, another thing that's being suggested is like a retirement home. Well, what are you going to do? I mean, right before I got out of the organization 6 years ago, there was a circuit overseer that I got to know pretty good, and he was really showing his disgust in the Watchtower, and he was still in there. He was saying, Rick, there's nothing here for me. I'm getting old, and they're going to put me out to pastor. And there was nothing there for him. And he says, my district overseer friend, he was invited to go into the writing department, but he says, I'm out of here. He says, I can only go another couple of years, and I've got nothing. He says, and what are they going to do with me? So I think what they're doing is they're making a facility, so at least that's what some have told me they think, for older mucky-mucks of the Watchtower, a retirement center, so to speak, or maybe even like some of these centers you see down in Florida, like retirement centers, where maybe the people will, give their house to the Watchtower, and Watchtower will say, come and live here, and you can live here free until you die. And that's another possibility that's out there. These are all strange things, friends. I know you're hearing some of this for the first time. But, let's face it, we are moving forward. We're in a modern age. How much longer can the Watchtower exist as a business? Unless they have to change their business model. But here's what I think. personally, I think what the Watchtower is doing is they're trying to get as much cash as they possibly can. And they're selling all of this real estate off in Brooklyn. Now, nobody knew the figures, but last Saturday night, my mole called me up. And he told me what they're going to make for money down there in Brooklyn when it's all sold off. He, on September 26th this year, just a week or two ago, they have a special Bethel meeting for all the Bethelites. They used to have it after the annual meeting, Joan, but they're now having it before. So on the 26th, he went into a Bethel meeting for all the Bethelites, and there was an official of the Watchtower at the door. Before he could go in, no phones, put your phones on the counter right here, no recorders. And he said, if anybody lets out what we're going to be talking about in this meeting, he says, you'll instantly be disfellowshipped. Now, there was not even a judicial committee hearing. If anyone leaks anything out. So 2 days later, I got a call from this Johnny the Bethelite, and he was willing to leak it out. So, yeah, it's an amazing thing. So I says, Johnny, what's the latest? What are they talking about down there at this meeting? He says, well, they are telling us all that Brooklyn will be out of there completely. There'll be no Watchtower property in Brooklyn after the year 2012. So they want to be out of there completely by then. So they want it all sold off. He says that the property is being sought after by large hotel conglomerates. The Taj, the Marriott hotel chain. He says the land they want to make as the most pristine area, prestige area, you could say, in all of New York, which is going to be right down there on the East River, right by the Brooklyn Bridge. Beautiful there. So they're going to take a lot of those building downs and refurbish them. And it's going to be all hotels. So in 10 years, maybe 6 years, you drive down there, the Watchtower will not be there. You'll see big hotels. Yeah, so it's all going. And Johnny said that they told us how much money that they're going to sell it all for and make. I said, I'm wondering, why would they say that? You know, I have no idea why they'd say it, but he said 20 to 40 billion dollars. That's what it'd be. And yet, what they're doing at the same time is putting credit card terminals in the circuit assemblies. These guys are bums. And, I mean, really, when you stop and think about it, you would think that the witnesses could wake up and smell the coffee. But as far as a recreational pool, I have an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Could we get a little of that recreational music going over there, Richard? We got some recreational music that I wanted to come play. And I have no problem with a rec center. I mean, many of us here probably go to the gym, right? Many of us here love to work out. Many of us here love to swim. But there's no problem. I mean, but they had problems with the YMCA. Remember that? You couldn't join that. A lot of witnesses didn't even have the money to go to a real nice center, so they joined the Y. But you could be disfellowshipped for that today. But and I have no problem with the pool either. But can you imagine Jesus swimming in that pool in Speedo and saying, "Boy, I am glad that I appointed the Watchtower in 1919 to be the true religion, because now I have membership for life." I just cannot imagine that happening, friends. But anyways, that's the YMCA song. You can cut it there, Richard. Yeah, yeah. So that's what we've got is we've got a lot of things going on that are big changes in the Watchtower. In fact, here it is right here. I just found it. If you want to see the report up in New York State where they're building, this one is up in, it's in Ulster County. This is the Watchtower Old Farms that they're remodeling. And I'll show you the plans if you want to see them. And also Barbara Anderson. How many know her here? How many know Barbara Anderson? All right, she was the one that was on the Dateline show. But she's a friend of mine. We converse a lot. She's been on my program a lot. And, as far as the UN is concerned, they're still in it. They're still in it, even though they say they left it. But they're in it through another wing of the UN. It's called the OSCE. And we've heard that term. From time to time it comes up in the news. But it stands for the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. And from the information available, it's the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society political lobbying arm. And so I have to ask, who really needs the UN when they have the OSCE? It's a big political organization. It's connected to the United Nations. And the reason why the Watchtower is still in it is they use this organization to help them, because it's an arm of the UN. They use this organization to help them to get into countries where they're being questioned. And, well, you know, the OSCE approves us, so, you know, take a look at this. And they show up at some of these meetings with Muslim groups and other religions that have been put under the radar screen. But they try to get this governmental, political organization that they're part of to help them to get in these countries. So they're still playing with political affairs in the world, but yet you can't even go down and buy a Girl Scout cookie when you stop and think about it. So these are some of the things that are happening. We talked about the August 2011 Watchtower magazine. We didn't talk about it. Who talked about it was Keith today in his talk, how they're now even saying here that memorial partakers are again mental, as you mentioned this morning. They are mentally ill. It says that the Watchtower has no idea of knowing the exact number of anointed ones on the earth. It says the governing body does not keep a list of all partakers, for it does not maintain a global network of anointed ones. This is what they're saying in the Watchtower. So, you know, this doesn't make sense. So it's really a joke, friends. The Watchtower is telling the entire world of 7 million Jehovah's Witnesses that the increasing number of partakers is caused by lunatics. And again, as you were saying this morning, Keith, you know, I was wondering, do you think there are more Jehovah's Witness anointed women or men? What do you think, huh? Well, I came across some information here, and it was by a Japanese brother, and I forget his name, but I'm losing all my notes here, but he actually was a friend with Freddie Franz, and this is back in the early 90s. And Freddie Franz shared some information with him, and the Japanese brother wrote in a book. And 96% of all anointed then are women. And that's an amazing thing. And, you know, people are wondering, well, why is it that there's so many anointed women? Yeah, so why so many women? And some were thinking, you know, that's the only thing really that a woman can really get is you know, to get this feeling of anointing, because they're really limited in so many of their other areas of privileges in the Watchtower. So I just thought I'd throw that in for a little side thought. But just to give you the grand totals, 2010 grand totals, there were 116 branches of Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide. The number of lands they're reporting in, 236. Total congregations, 107,210. The memorial attendance, 18,706,895. And, of course, the memorial partakers, 11,202. So they claim they have a 2.5% increase, and they can claim anything. But I have to tell you, quite frankly, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying the figures from the Watchtower. Yes, Wendy.
I don't know where I read it, but I go on Randy Waters' website a lot, Free Minds, and I found it twice, and I kicked myself for not saving it because I'm not computer savvy and I will hunt for it. But I read where in the last 3 years, 1 million people have been this fellowship. Do you know anything about that? But that's the figure. 1 million.
Is that right?
We'll find it, and then I'll
Yeah, I didn't hear that, Wendy, but it's a possibility. And if,
do they keep a number of this fellowship people anymore?
oh yeah, they keep a number, but I mean you're never going to read it.
Well,
You know.
somebody leaked it out.
Yeah.
It's 1 million, but it's taken 3 years.
Wow, huh? So these are the things that are happening, and they continue to say they're growing, but I'm not buying it, and a lot of people aren't buying it. But the biggest thing, and I wanted to save this for last. I don't know if anyone has seen this or not, but it comes from us from Australia. And a lot of things are going on right now in Australia. We have an Australian brother here with us as well. But, pardon? No, I won't blame you, no. But This is right out of the paper. Right out of the paper. A door closes on Jehovah's Witnesses campaign by a man by the name of Mr. Hammond, and he wrote for the Sunday Herald Sun. Is that a real newspaper in Australia? Okay, this was on July 16th, 2011. Jehovah's Witness children will continue to door-knock neighborhoods with adults who have failed to gain police background checks after a bid to stop the practice failed this week. I'll just give it to you in my own words what's going on here. In Australia, there's a former witness. His name is Stephen Unthank, and he was disfellowshipped from the Jehovah's Witnesses. And what he's concerned with in Victoria, that's a state in Australia, they have a law that if you're a minister, you have to register or you have to have a background check to make sure there's nothing in your past that would prevent you from working with children. So the Watchtower did not want to comply with this. They were supposed to comply with this in the year 2008, and the country, the state of Victoria has been working with the witnesses and trying to get them to comply. But they said, no, we're not going to do it. It doesn't apply to us. But what do we always learn as Jehovah's Witnesses? If you were a man, a woman, or a child who was baptized, you are a minister for the Jehovah's Witnesses. So this Stephen Unthank, he says, hey, they're getting away with it. So he went to the court, and in Australia, you can act as a prosecutor. It's different than the laws here. So he filed a charge against the Watchtower Society, the governing body, all of the officials of the Watchtower, and he wanted a court hearing on this. So we had a court hearing on it just in September. In fact, it was on September 10th, 2011. So this is all recent stuff. So he had a hearing in court, and there was a Watchtower woman there who was the lawyer. It wasn't Wall, but it was another lady, Watchtower lawyer. And she didn't do a good job, so they're going to get a second hearing. So they now opened the door, and there are criminal complaints against the Watchtower for not complying with this child background check. So this looks like a good thing. The Watchtower is very nervous over this. In fact, this fellow Johnny, the old Bethelite, told me that that's one of the main things they're concerned about. And some of the governing body might even have to show up there to answer these charges, and they could be imprisoned. I mean, that's how serious this is. So when I first heard that, I'm saying, boy, is this a fact? It's a fact, and it looks like it could be a good thing for humanity that the witnesses now have to come in and answer some serious questions. But it's all over the papers. If you punch in Stephen Unthank, all of this will come up. UNTHANK. Well, we've got more, and we don't have much time here. In conclusion, I just want to say that yesterday is a memory. Tomorrow is a mystery. I don't mean that personally, Eric, wherever he is. We don't know how it's going to go. We know it's going to go good. It's going to explode, isn't it? Huh? But today is a gift, is it not? And that's why we all call it a present. And we've all been given a present by Joan, haven't we? Huh? I know I have. And I'm so proud and just so gracious that I've come to meet Joan, as all of us have here. And indeed, Joan, you and this convention have given us this present. And we'll never forget it. And it's going to continue on. And I want to say that we love you, and we hope that all good things can happen for you in the future, Joan. And I do it. And I just want to say, the last one leaving the Watchtower, please turn out the new lights.